In a small, quiet town, where the days blended into one another, there stood a modest house at the very end of Maple Street. It was a house like any other, except for one small detail. Every night, long after the rest of the neighborhood had surrendered to the darkness, one window remained stubbornly, brilliantly lit. The neighbors noticed, of course. They would glance at it on their way home, a silent question hanging in the air. But no one ever asked why. It was just a part of the town's quiet rhythm, a solitary beacon in the night. Inside that house, surrounded by the silence of empty rooms and the echoes of memories, lived an old man named Elias. He had lived alone for as long as anyone could remember, his world filled with the ghosts of yesterday. His routine was simple, almost ritualistic. Every evening, as dusk settled over the town, Elias would carefully place a small, ornate lamp on the windowsill. He'd switch it on, its warm glow pushing back against the encroaching darkness. And then he would sit in his favorite armchair, watch the light, and wait. A soft, hopeful whisper would escape his lips, a prayer sent into the night. Maybe tonight. It hadn't always been this way. There was a time when this house wasn't defined by silence, but by an abundance of life. It was a home filled with the sound of running feet, of joyous laughter that bounced off the walls, and a warmth that had nothing to do with the fireplace. It was the warmth of family, of love. Elias had a daughter, a bright, curious girl named Lena. She had a mind full of wonder and eyes that were always looking up, searching for answers in the night sky. She would sit on his lap, her small finger pointing towards the heavens. "Papa?" she'd ask, her voice full of awe. "Do you think the stars can see us too? Do they know we're down here?" Elias would chuckle, his heart swelling with a love so immense it felt like it could burst. He'd pull her close and say, "Oh, I'm sure they can, my little star. And if they can, I hope they see just how brave and wonderful you are." Those were the golden years, the memories he now clung to like a lifeline. But time, as it always does, moved forward, and the golden years began to tarnish. Lena grew up, and with age came a fierce independence, a desire to forge her own path. The easy laughter was replaced by tense conversations, and the shared wonder gave way to differing opinions. One stormy night, the tension finally broke. An argument, sharp and regrettable, echoed through the house. Words were said that couldn't be unsaid. In a fit of anger and hurt, Elias shouted, "Don't you dare walk out that door." "But," said Edith, with tears in her eyes and a storm raging both outside and within her heart. Lena pulled on her coat. She paused at the doorway, her hand on the knob, and turned back to face him. The anger in her face had softened into a deep, profound sadness. "I'll come back," she said, her voice barely a whisper against the wind and rain. "I'll come back when the light is on." And with that promise hanging in the air, she stepped out into the storm and disappeared. That night, she never returned. From that day forward, Elias's life changed. The promise became his purpose. He never, ever turned the light off. Through gentle spring rains and blistering summer heat, through the falling leaves of autumn and the biting winds of winter, the light remained. It was a silent testament to a father's unwavering hope. It burned through thunderstorms and quiet, moonless nights alike, because hope, he believed, even when it feels broken and fragile, still waits. It has to. The neighbors, in their quiet way, developed their own stories about the light. They whispered about the old man at the end of Maple Street. Some pitied him, seeing him as a lonely soul lost in his own world. Others dismissed him as eccentric, a little crazy perhaps. They saw a light in a window, but none of them understood what it truly meant. They didn't know it was a lighthouse in a storm, a beacon of forgiveness, a silent, desperate plea for a daughter to find her way home. They didn't know it was the language of a broken heart, spelling out the word welcome night after night, year after year. Decades passed. The world outside Elias's window changed, but the light remained constant. Elias grew older, his movements slower, his hair the color of snow. The hope in his heart, once a blazing fire, had dwindled to a fragile ember, but it was an ember he carefully protected from the winds of despair. One evening, as he sat in his usual spot, lost in thought, a sound broke the familiar silence. A soft, hesitant knock at the door. Elias froze, his heart lurching in his chest. Visitors were a rarity. He slowly rose from his chair, his old bones protesting with every step. Who is it? Hey, cut it out, his voice rough from disuse. The doorknob turned, and the door creaked open, letting in the cool night air. A woman stood on the threshold, silhouetted against the darkness. She looked older, her face etched with the lines of a hard-lived life. She looked tired, but her eyes, as they met his, he knew. They were the same eyes that had once looked up at the stars with so much wonder. Her voice, shaking with emotion, broke the stillness. "Papa!" I followed the light. In that one moment, time stopped. The decades of waiting, the mountains of regret, the ocean of pain, all collapsed into a single, heart-stopping instant. The strength left Elias's legs, and he sank to his knees, the dam of unshed tears finally breaking. A lifetime of sorrow poured down his face. Through his sobs, he managed to speak, his voice choked with emotion. "I never turned it off. I never stopped. I just hoped. I hoped you'd find your way home." Lena rushed to him, her own tears flowing freely. She knelt and wrapped her arms around her father, a hug that bridged the chasm of lost years. "I did, Papa!" she cried into his shoulder. "I did." The silence that followed was no longer empty. It was filled with forgiveness, with reunion, with a love that had endured the longest of nights.